84% of viewers are not subscribed to GlobeTrotting, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Air New Zealand, with much fanfare, launched their longest service, a non-stop flight between Auckland and New York only a handful of weeks ago, in an attempt to capture some of the ultra-long-haul markets before Qantas launches their Project Sunrise, and in addition, capitalise on the capabilities of their 787-9 by flying the longest distance possible. The premise of the route was most definitely valid, and the opportunities to connect with Star Alliance partners, while also better connecting the eastern part of North America with New Zealand, was definitely there. However, since its launch, it's been a troubled service, with many occurrences where the airline has been met with negative headlines. Let's though explore what's been happening and why this may all be taking place. Firstly, offloading passengers. During the first week of operations back in September, specifically at the end of that month, Air New Zealand asked that some passengers voluntarily remove themselves from the service to Auckland, this being the return leg. A total of 20 passengers were asked very shortly before boarding to be removed. This is as per the NZ Herald. Why did this happen? Well, with such a long route, there's a lot of planning that must be done, and as well for Air New Zealand, according to various spokespeople and even executives at the airline themselves, their planning hadn't been totally accurate, as they did not factor in significantly stronger headwinds on the route that could be possible. These headwinds far exceed any calculations done by Air New Zealand during the years of planning, something that has undoubtedly raised eyebrows. Checked baggage also in the early weeks was offloaded without notice. This was due to strict weight restrictions. Potentially looking to also block some of the rows of seats has been mentioned, and bad weather has been cited as just some of the reasoning behind this and the need for additional fuel. Secondly, on one of its first journeys, the airline noted it was going to have to make a potential fuel stop in Fiji. However, this was only going to be a fuel short stop if they went through with it due to strong headwinds, higher than the modelling they expected. And they said that refueling in Fiji would become part of this service if weather persisted or any other issues were found. Most recently though, only a handful of days ago at the time of publication, Air New Zealand once again narrowly avoided another stopover in Fiji, something that is becoming quite the common occurrence, and is labelled by many rather embarrassing that a service with so much potential and has been earmarked as one that is so important with so much fanfare has just had so many issues plaguing it. What do the public, analysts and more say? Well, Air New Zealand is stretching the 787-9 to the absolute limit, but not in the best way, actually in a manner where they're impacting the reliability of the aircraft, and of course, the route itself. Some say it's teething issues that any new ultra-long-haul flight has, which can be definitely true. However, at Air New Zealand, for their modelling to be incorrect and to not factor in potential high winds, poor weather and more, which of course are all frequent occurrences when flying, well, they've now landed themselves in a position where potential fuel stops are always going to be a common occurrence. Bags being removed and passengers being offloaded on each flight now remain a risk, and for a flagship service, it's not the best look. While Air New Zealand has these issues, they can definitely be relieved that in the coming years there will be adjustments made to the 787 cabins that are flying on these services, which should overall reduce weight, meaning issues with passengers, fuel and more should not be present. Was poor planning a catalyst for the troubled flight? Well, it could be undoubtedly said so that yes it is, with key factors simply not being taken into account. Why? Well, that's where the pure speculation comes in. According to some within the industry, that with their neighbours Qantas eyeing Project Sunrise, which do include also ultra-long flights to New York non-stop, Air New Zealand wanted in on the action before Qantas launched Project Sunrise. This would enable them to establish a hopeful firm market share. However, they may have fallen short of expectations in their attempt to better compete with the Australian carrier. As stated on the leading YouTube channel, DJ's Aviation, safety will always be the first priority in flying. If this is what has to be done to maintain the safety of all those on board the Air New Zealand flight, then that's what has to be done. However, it doesn't excuse poor planning and potential delays when charging such a fee for the service. Even before you can get a plane in the sky, you do need to determine that the route the plane is flying is feasible and won't potentially, say, incur fuel stops and consistent issues, because yes, while bad weather is out of Air New Zealand's control, it is a fundamental factor when planning and stretching the capabilities of an aircraft to the absolute maximum. What are your thoughts on the rather disastrous service so far by Air New Zealand through to New York, with the service again originating, just to mention, in Auckland? You can let us know down below in the comments. Thank you very much for your support. Do take care, and we will see you next time right here on GlobeTrotting.